Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amy if you're brand new here, and today I have another Q&A video for you guys. The first question is by Kathy Cruz. Hi Amy, I'm selling my Gucci Dionysus to fund a Fendi Mon Trésor bucket bag. I just love it, but it will take me a year to save up for it, and the price of the Gucci just keeps going up compared to how much I bought it for. What would you do? Would you sell your most least used bag and yet you love the look of it and it is still quite popular, or wait to save up for another year? This is the little bucket bag that she was referring to, not necessarily this color or anything or even this print, but it's the style of the Fendi bucket bag, which is all the rage this year. For me personally, I find that the Gucci Dionysus, even though it is such a beautiful bag and it is quite trendy, and yet it can kind of pass as a classic for Gucci as well, because I do see it becoming kind of one of their classics, I suppose. Not necessarily that they will have it available every year, but I just see it as an iconic bag many years later. I guess that's how I see it. The only issue that I have with the bag is that I do find it super heavy, and it's so structured and heavy, and the chain is not necessarily helping by not being very comfortable, that I won't necessarily hold on to it, even though I know that it is a very popular bag and I do agree that it is very beautiful. On the other hand, the little bucket bag from Fendi, I don't know, I just love very much. I know that the mini bucket is such a trend at the moment, but bucket bags in general is a classic as well. I always try to look at it also from a perspective of practicality and whether I would reach for it often. Having said that, this has been a huge favorite this past summer and I don't see it fading anytime soon. I love it because it's very lightweight and it's very easy to get in and out of, and this style will never really go out of style per se. I mean, the mini trend might go out of style, but the style itself, the bucket trend, will not go out of style. It'll always come back. And so from a practicality standpoint and from a standpoint of me knowing that I will probably reach for this, you know, over and over the next years to come, more than the Dionysus is higher. So in my case, I would totally sell my most least used bag, meaning the Dionysus if I had one, to get this, because ever since I got this, I had no regrets. I love it so much. It honestly can be an everyday bag. It really packs a punch for a little bag. You can really get away with a lot inside. Next question is by Bargain Hunting Blonde. I have been eyeing the Can I bag and it is such a perfect time for a review. I cannot decide between the small, mini, or the medium size. So this is the bag that she was referring to. Obviously not exactly the same combination, but this style of the Fendi bag. So I have it in the medium size. So the medium size comes with two, I guess one handle and one shoulder strap, whereas the small size, which are sometimes referred as the mini size, is about, I would say it's a little shorter, and it's about it's kind of like a squarer version of this, which is a lot smaller than this version. This version actually fits a lot of stuff. I just love the Can I bag, period. Whether it's the medium size or the small size, I think they're beautiful. The reason why I chose the medium size is because I felt like I have a lot of mini size bags, which you guys probably know, which is exactly what I was looking for, because I wanted something that still looks small enough to carry on a daily basis or whenever I want to carry it, but I wanted to pack a punch basically. So that's the reason why I chose the medium size. Having tried the small size myself as well, I still think that both are beautiful. The only difference is that the small size will fit a little bit less, and it also doesn't have that hand carry strap. I do love this hand carry strap because I don't know, it's just so much more sophisticated. You can use it on the crook of your arm. You can also hold it by hand. I'm a huge fan of holding my bags by hand, but I love having the option of a shoulder strap because I just love having that dynamic ability to just switch between the handheld and also the shoulder strap. So I'm a huge fan of bags that have both options. Even if you chose the small size, you can also buy a lot of different accessories, smaller straps to go with your small bag, and you can basically transform it into this look basically very easily. There's just so many different straps out there from Fendi or even other brands as well. Next question is by Cami Hardwig. Hi Amy, I thought about getting the Kenai or the Antigona as an everyday bag. What do you think? About the Kenai, is yours the medium size? Can you remove the metal strap? I don't like metal straps for everyday use. Again, we're referring to the exact same bag. I do have mine in the medium size, and she was, I guess, trying to ask whether this strap, this longer strap, is removable. This is the metal strap, and it is. All you need to do is remove it from the leather piece here. I do have to mention that it is not so easy to remove it. It is easier if you have the tools for it. So I use a plier and I do it very carefully, making sure that I cover the leather with other fabrics and just basically enough protection to cover the leather so that the plier doesn't damage the leather. Regarding whether the Antigona or the Kenai is a better everyday bag, I think that's so subjective. I personally prefer the look of the Kenai. While I think that this medium size fits a lot, I don't know, perhaps it might fit not enough for you, because I guess depending on which size Antigona you're going as well, but I believe that the size small is quite large actually, and the size mini is more comparable to a Speedy 25. So even then, it's still a pretty big bag in my opinion. And so I would think that maybe the size of this is more comparable to a mini Antigona. And again, it also depends on what you have to put inside as an everyday bag. The Antigona is probably going to be too big for me and too bulky for me, and I personally don't prefer the style of the Antigona because it's so similar to a Speedy. And you guys, if you've been following my channel, you guys know that my Speedy is one of my least used bags. Next question is by Amy C. Just wondering if you're doing anything to protect your light colored bags from color transfer. I just got the Gabrielle Smile in beige and black, and I'm very scared about color transfer. The answer is no, I don't actually do any treatments, or I guess I don't really do anything special to protect any of my bags, whether they are light colored or dark color. Of course, mine being black will not be a problem at all. My good friend here on YouTube, Kat L, has the Gabrielle bag in the medium size in the, I believe she also has the beige and the black, and she got some color transfer on hers, but the only reason why she got it is because she used it during one of her trips to London, and she was wearing a heavier coat that is of dark color, so the wool coat was rubbing off onto her bag. Luckily she was able to clean it off, so I do encourage you to watch her video regarding how she cleaned her Gabrielle bag, because yeah, I was pretty amazed too. Two of the products that she used were from the brand Colonial, Colonil, I believe that's how it's spelled. But anyways, it is sold on Amazon, or you can watch her video just to get a refresh of what she did exactly to her bag. But luckily I haven't had to do anything to any of my bags, and the only light color bag that I have is, like I said, the earlier one, and most of the time I'll probably just hand carry that one. I would probably not wear it crossbody all that much. Next question is by HO624. Hi Amy, I love your Valentino bag. I just wanted to ask you if you think it'll ever go back on sale. I love this bag so much, you guys. I surprisingly loved reaching for it so much, especially for nice evenings out. It really fits a lot, and I stand by the review where I said it's so much easier to like get my phone in and out of this because of the soft leather. Like I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of some of the luxury shopping sites out there, mainly Matches Fashion, Louisa Via Roma. I've also shopped at Farfetch and My Theresa, and Essence, which is Canadian. And yeah, I do believe that it will go back on sale. I'm not exactly sure when, but the times to watch out are definitely during the Christmas holidays, during the Black Friday area, like around that time. Usually at the end of June, July, even August. So I do encourage you guys to check out those websites and also sign up for their newsletter. I'll pop all the links to all the favorite and major websites that I love to shop at, and especially for us Canadians, the four that I have dealt with so far that has worked wonders is, in my order of preference, Matches Fashion, Louisa Via Roma, Essence, and Farfetch are both equally good. So Sammy Yip, would you be able to do a video sharing your shopping experience with those European sites? It seems that they're getting popular to shop those sites from Canadians. How are their services, shipping charges, return exchange policy, and duty charges? I still encourage you guys to read their website because they're all very different, and you have to make sure that you read it properly in terms of, like, is it easy to exchange, is it free to exchange or return, is the duty prepaid or not. All those things are very, very important because it varies per country. So even though I might have a good experience with a certain online retailer, it doesn't mean that it will be the same for you because you're located somewhere else. You may not be Canadian, right? So personally, I am a big fan of Matches Fashion and Louisa Via Roma. They're both very, very good, have very good stock, very good prices in general. I find their shipping is extra fast. Matches Fashion is super fast. Louisa Via Roma is not that far behind. They're just a little bit further. They're in Italy, so it takes like a day or two longer, and both of them are on a duty prepaid basis. So whatever you buy, you can opt to prepay taxes and duties, so there will be no surprise at delivery, and they're both free to return and pretty easy to return. So that's my experience so far. I'm a big fan of those two. I've also tried Essence and Farfetch. Actually, Farfetch is a little bit different. Farfetch is kind of like an aggregate of all the little boutiques around the world. Basically, anything that is listed on the Farfetch website can come from anywhere around the world. So it just depends on who has that item at that time, which boutique it belongs to, and where that boutique is in. Usually they are in Europe, but a lot of them can be also from North America, so it really depends. They're also quite easy to deal with for Canadians so far. Taxes and duties prepaid. Shipping is not free with them, but they sometimes have promotional free shipping, and also return is free, and they're relatively fast. They're not the fastest only because that boutique that sells the item has to send it to Farfetch, and then Farfetch sends it to you. Same thing when you return something, you return it to Farfetch and they return it to the boutique. So it takes a little bit more time in terms of the shipping and the return service, but relatively easy to deal with again, so I have no problems with them. I've also bought from Essence and My Teresa. Essence is actually Canadian. They're located in Montreal, and I actually know where exactly it is in Montreal because I used to live there, and I know the area where the actual building is. So I know it is a legitimate company, and they often have lots of sales as well, and their sales are pretty good, and their stock is pretty good as well. Now, being Canadian, of course, there's no problems with taxes and duties with Essence because they're Canadian. Shipping is also often free with Essence, I believe, if you buy a certain amount. Same thing with Matches Fashion and Louisa Via Roma. You buy a certain amount, it will be free shipping. Last but not least, My Teresa, I've also purchased from them once. And with My Teresa, although I do like a lot of the stock that they have, and when they have promotions or sales on clearance items and whatnot, the prices are very good. However, for Canadians, they are not on a prepaid duty and taxes basis. So basically, when you receive the item, then you will actually get extra duties and tax. Well, not extra, you're basically getting charged at that point. So it can be quite a hefty amount because we all know, as Canadians, we get taxed on everything, and when you get taxed, your local sales tax and federal tax and duties, it can add up to maybe 20 to 30% of the purchase item's price. So that's quite a bit. With My Teresa, it probably is not as good of an option if you're not sure about the item. It's only really good if you're sure for the item. I'm speaking strictly in terms of just buying experience as a Canadian. Obviously, if you're from the States or anywhere else in the world, you need to read the terms of the website and see if it applies to your country, and if it doesn't, how different is it, and are you okay with the terms? Because if you're not sure about an item and you might return something if it doesn't work out, then you need to make sure that the return policy is easy and that there are no fees associated with it, and if there were fees, that you would be okay with it. You know what I mean? You always have to research. Don't just assume that everything is the same in every case. Often enough it's not. Next question, lady in suitcase. I'm thinking of getting either the Chanel Mini or the Alma BB in Ippy black like yours. I want something that can transition easily from casual to dressier. Especially when traveling, I don't want to have to carry different bags. To see if it fits my essentials, such as card holder, compact tissue, mini lipstick, at least 2, Chanel pressed powder, perfume, power bank, cords, headset, USB, a small pen, jewelry, cotton pouch, glasses or sunnies. I currently am rocking the Locket 2BB, the small, but it fits all the things I mentioned. But I do want to give it a bit of rest. I also have an Alma and ended up only carrying once. I'm assuming you're talking about the PM size. What do you suggest, the Alma BB or the Chanel Mini Flap? Here's a bit of eye candy for you guys. This is my latest and newest Chanel Mini Flap. This is the rectangle size, so it's the longer and shorter size. I also have the square size, which is less wide but a little bit taller. Many of you know that I no longer have the Alma BB, but I loved the bag when I had it. I still have the Alma PM though, and I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of only carrying it once, because that's exactly what's happening to me. I love the Alma PM. It was my very first LV bag. I love it in terms of, you know, it was my first milestone of getting a luxury bag. It's a beautiful classic and it's super well made and I mean super iconic, so what's not to love? Except that I never carry it because, like you said, it is harder to get in and out of it. In my opinion, I think that the dome shape is not the most easy to get in and out of it if you do it often enough, unless you leave it sort of semi-open or completely open. Now, having said that, I do think that the Alma BB, so the smaller size, is a totally different story in a sense that that size, for whatever reason, is definitely easier to carry because it is smaller. It's definitely a lot more versatile because it has that extra shoulder strap that you can wear crossbody. Also because mini bag is, you know, still really trendy right now, so I would say that the Alma BB is definitely a little bit better than the Alma PM. In fact, a lot better, in a sense that I think that it's more versatile and that you'll probably get a lot more use out of it. Now, it doesn't solve all the problems. It's still a dome shape and it still has that dome shaped zipper, so in terms of getting in and out of it, unless you're okay with having to open it and close it all the time or just leave it open, like I said earlier, then that's, you know, that's something that you have to be mindful of and that you have to accept if you do decide to go with it. It is, however, so much more roomy than this mini flap that I just showed you. This mini flap looks like it's a huge mini flap, but in reality, you know, the stuff that you can put in there is not that much, and especially when you close the flap, then it basically constricts the because there's not that much height, and then it's a pretty small bag, so most items, if it gets puffy enough, it'll be hard to close, and there's definitely a lot less space inside because the leather itself on this bag, being quilted and everything, takes up a lot of space on the inside even. So even though it looks big on the outside, it's quite deceiving. Now, it's not like that small, but in my opinion, the Alma BB still fits a lot more. So there's a bit of a trade-off. There's also a big price difference. Ultimately, I still let go of my Alma BB in favor of the mini flap. So before I got this one, I had the square version. I still have the square version actually. So I still, you know, went in favor of the mini flap only because the Alma BB did bother me enough that I feel like it was okay to let it go at the time. And also, even though the Alma BB does fit a lot more, I was okay with this size in a sense that I learned how to downsize enough to go with this size. But hearing how many items you actually have, you have glasses, you have perfume, and you have, you know, feminine products and all that other stuff, it will not fit in here, I guarantee it. So in terms of whether it will fit your items, Alma BB for sure is a better choice. You might still have to play a little bit of Tetris because of the dome shape and because of the way it opens. But trust me, this will not fit everything you just mentioned. So unless you are going after this style and you're crazy about it like I am, and you can learn to downsize significantly, then I say that the Alma BB is still a better choice for you. Layla Zobel, please make an updated Chanel classic flap wear and tear review if it's worth the money. Tips on buying a first Chanel classic bag. The only classic flap that I have from Chanel is my pre-love single flap jumbo, which is this one. So I always store it like this with the straps and a felt in between it, and then I have another felt piece right here. In terms of buying your first Chanel bag, that is a tricky one, and I think it will probably take a whole video, so I'll talk a little bit about it. But if you want me to, I guess, make an entire video dedicated to this subject, let me know. Technically, my very first Chanel bag, I bought it retail from the Chanel store in Vancouver in 2010, and I walked in knowing nothing, no knowledge about Chanel at all. But I still walked in and I bought at the time I bought the reissue flap, the 2.55. I believe it was the medium size, so it was the 226 size, I think. It was at the time a limited edition in the caviar, so it was super heavy. But yeah, I chose it in the ruthenium color hardware. And it was such a shock when I bought it because it was so expensive. It was like, including tax, it was like over $4,000. Now I know $4,000 is half of what the price of it is today, which is kind of ridiculous. And that was only 8 years ago, so can you imagine? But at the time I thought it was extortionate and I couldn't stomach it, and so I sold it afterwards. And I didn't buy a Chanel bag until more recently. I believe it was 2016 when I bought my first Chanel bag. So yeah, what a journey, right? I'm a huge fan of pre-loved classic flap because, mark my words, I'm not gonna buy a brand new one unless I win the lottery or something. But I refuse to buy a brand new classic flap because the prices now, it's just ridiculous. When you add tax to it, it's $7,000–8,000 for a medium flap or a jumbo. It's just crazy. I'm a big fan of pre-love when you find the right bag, the right combination, and the right condition. So I guess it depends on what you want to do, because you might not be a fan of pre-love. You might want to go the retail route, even though it will cost you an arm and a leg or a lot of savings, let's put it that way. Other decisions you have to make is which leather finish, what color hardware, what color leather you want to go with. Are you just gonna go with the plain classic black caviar or lambskin? I mean, these are huge decisions to make, and it is very hard to make a decision without having the experience of it. And like I said before, I just went in blindly the first time I bought my very first Chanel bag. It's kind of crazy, but I do think that it added to my experience, or at least be able to be more analytical in terms of what I would love more as my first Chanel bag. And even then, I honestly think that it's very hard. Beyond that, there's also a bunch of other options as well. I mean, I know that we're talking about classic flaps here, but there's also the reissue style, there's also the mini style, and there's also the Gabrielle line now, and the boy line, and the Coco Chanel line, and the, you know what I'm talking about? There's so many different ones that can still become a classic flap for you, in a sense that it can still be your classic Chanel bag for you. So There's so many things to consider. Anyway, I know that that's not really answering your question, but at the same time, I'm raising all these questions. So if you guys want me to do a dedicated video on I guess my experience and also how I went about choosing my first Chanel bag, and how, I guess the course of actions that I would recommend, I suppose, hopefully in helping you find your first Chanel bag, then let me know. The next question is by JJSSHH. JJSSHH. I can't pronounce that, so I'm spelling it out. Hi Amy, I love both your minis. They're both gorgeous. I'm contemplating whether to get the exact same square mini as you have or the new season 18B square mini. Any suggestions? Which caviar leather you prefer? So she's referring to these two minis. This one is the newer one from the 18B. So as you can see, the texture of both of these side by side, this one just looks like it has this nice shiny thick coating on it. This one is also shiny, but it just looks softer, and it does feel softer as well when I pressed it too. This one just feels pillowy and just a little bit more mellow, whereas this one, it's a little tougher, a little bit more plasticky even. And I do remember that when I first got this one, it does smell like plastic for quite a while before it dissipated. The coating on this is just thicker, and it took a little bit longer to kind of break it in because it's so stiff, whereas this one is a whole lot more softer. The only other difference is that this one has the stitching and this one doesn't. So around the flap, it doesn't have the extra stitching. To be very honest, I'm a fan of both caviars, but I am a little bit sort of biased towards this one, maybe because it was my first one, but I do think that this one is slightly more durable. It's the most durable caviar I've seen. That's how I feel. But honestly, they're both great, and sometimes it's even hard to pursue a certain season's one because it's so hard to find current, let alone pre-loved, honestly, for a very specific bag. So I would just jump onto the first one that appears, as long as they're in the condition and pricing that you agree with. I would just jump on it because it's so hard to get a hands on any square minis, or any minis for that matter. The next question is by Mishi. Hi Amy, I was just wondering, how did you find out about this Chanel bag in the first place, since they didn't post any pictures or release any of them on their Chanel website? I thought this question was super interesting because I once wondered the same thing myself. It is extremely hard to find out about what is about to release in the upcoming season and whatnot, because there's very limited information online on the Chanel website. It is actually getting a little bit better now, I find, because they've revamped their website. It's loading a little bit faster also, and there's a little bit more pricing information in general as well. So I think that's helpful in general, but they don't really show, and they don't really put photos of all the bags that are coming out. They only put a portion of them, so you really can't even see everything until the collection arrives and you go to the store to look at it. Or the other ways, which I think that's pretty much the ways that I find out now, and that I think a lot of people find out now, is through social media. So your YouTube videos, other people's unboxing, Instagram, the Facebook groups, the Purse forum. These are all great places to find out more about information ahead of time. We're such a great community of people who share information to help each other out, I suppose, and to share the love with each other, that I think that's the best place to get information. And in fact, I find that a lot of times we know more than the sales assistant at the Chanel boutique themselves. So yeah, that's basically how I find out, to be honest. A lot of times if I want to look up something specific, I'll just type on Google, for example, Chanel 18B, Purse forum, whatever it comes up, I'll just go through all the links at what people discuss and maybe pictures that they have posted. Also, Instagram is a huge resource for photos, especially. Use the hashtags. Look up in the search bar, look up Chanel 18B as the hashtag. You'll find tons of stuff. Or look up Chanel Mini, or look up Chanel Flap, whatever the hashtag is, whatever that you're trying to look up. The next question is by Fashionika. Hi Amy, I would love to know if you still have your LV shawl and if you would still repurchase it if something happened to one of them. When you bought yours, did you choose from many of them, or did you know exactly which color you wanted? Having had the two LV shawls for a while now, especially because I had the denim one first. I have the blue denim one, and then I added the all black, just plain black color monogram one. So they're both monogram, but the first one is the denim blue color and the second one was just plain black color. If anything were to happen to any of them or both of them, I would probably not repurchase them. And I guess that's huge, because before I would probably repurchase them, but now I probably won't, only because I also have the Burberry ones, and I do find that in general the Burberry ones just feels a lot easier to style with. I think that's the main thing, the easiness to style with. That is not to say that the LV shawls are no good or that they're harder to style. They're not necessarily harder to style, especially if you go with the plain colors. I think when you go with the plain black or plain pink color or plain beige or gray, they're a little bit less in your face. So because they're a little bit more subtle, I do think that they're easier to style. But the size of them is also another issue. They're quite bulky and they're very large. It's a beautiful shawl, and they really wrap really nicely and drape really nicely, except that they're very large as well. So a lot of times I find myself not needing quite a large shawl, and because of that I kind of favor the smaller shawls from Burberry. And they're not like that small, they're just a bit smaller and less bulky. Reason number 3 is that the LV ones snags very easily. I'm glad that they are in my collection, but whether I recommend them that much, it's easily a no as well, because it really depends on whether you're okay with them wearing out easily, because they can wear quite easily. They snag very easily just from buttons or zippers or nails. My first one was the blue denim one, and I pretty much didn't really have any doubt going in choosing that pattern, because at the time I remember watching Jerusha's video and she had the black denim one, and I think Nastasia also had the black denim one. So they were my first influence in terms of getting my first LV shawls, and I wanted, at the time I knew that I wanted the denim print, so the more out there print, in either the black or the blue. They're both very similar color anyway, so I didn't question my choice of color at the time. Having had that for a while, I wanted something more plain, so that's why I went with the black. And so if I were to recommend to anyone right now, or if I were to redo my choices, I would probably just go with the plain black. And last but not least, by Layla Zobel. Hi Amy, which app is the best to sell clothes and bags? I'm planning to buy my first Chanel bag. Please do a video for tips and what to check for Chanel Flap caviar, gold hardware, and what the return policies are. Actually, now that I'm reading the question, it just sounds like you guys really want a video on tips and tricks on choosing your first Chanel bag, so maybe I will actually do it. But I'll just, I guess, touch on the subject a little bit right now. In terms of return policies for Chanel, it varies from country to country. So in Canada, there's actually no return policy. You can't really return any purchases. But it's not final sale either. You can still exchange your item within the first 14 days of purchase. So at least there is that, I suppose, if you do really change your mind at the end. But because of the no return policy, I do encourage you guys to only buy if you're fairly sure. I know that's not always possible. Obviously, I've experienced it myself. A lot of times you want something so bad and you think that you would love it for sure, only to find out that's not really what you wanted and that it didn't really suit your lifestyle. So it's kind of too late because you obviously can't return it. So the only other option is to sell it. Luckily for Chanel items, I do still believe that it is relatively easier to sell than most brands. I say relatively because it's never easy to sell, but it is easier to sell than most other brands in my opinion. Choosing your first Chanel flat bag or Chanel bag in Caviar Gold hardware, the best way to know for sure is to go in person and to check it out and to try it on yourself. It is honestly the very best way, because when you go in person, no matter how many review videos you see and how many purse forums you read, of course they're all helpful and it will give you a pretty good idea of what you might like. But until you see it in person and touch it in person and try it on in person, maybe it's not really what you thought it would be. So honestly, the best way is to check it out in person. And finally, which app, or I guess ways, is best to sell your items? Before, I did Craigslist and eBay, and it kind of works, but not all the time, because a lot of times there are a lot of very unserious buyers and lowballers. So I've kind of stopped doing that, and now I rely mostly on my social media. So I sell on my Instagram at FashionablyAMY's Closet. So my link is always down in my description if you guys want to just follow me there as well. Other ways that I also still do is through the Facebook groups, and I still occasionally use eBay and Craigslist if it's just you know, clothing and whatever, like not luxury items. But there's also one new platform that I discovered recently that I started using, and it's called Poshmark. However, Poshmark is only good if you live in the US. Now, I kind of cheated, and because I do go down to the States quite often because the border is not very far away from where I live. With Poshmark, there are pros and cons. Obviously, the pros is that they cover anything from insurance to, I guess, there's already a group of buyers out there that already use Poshmark as well. And also, they provide shipping for you. On the other hand, they do take quite a large portion of your gains. So, not even gains, like basically your sale price. They take, is it 25% or 30% of your sale price? So that's significant in my opinion. But you do get the whole platform where you can just post and wait for a buyer to appear, right? So that part is all taken care of, which is great. So I do sell a few things on Poshmark as well, so you guys can follow me there as well. I mainly just sell like my leather jackets and stuff that is like in the medium price range, not necessarily like the very low price range, but I also don't really put my luxury items there. I do also want to add to the last point, which is that selling is never easy, and I talked about it before in a previous Q&A. Selling, it should be your last resort. It's very hard to sell. It's a long process. There's a lot of work involved. It's much harder than people think. So I don't encourage you to buy thinking that you can easily sell it. Having experienced all the different platforms and just having the opportunity to sell quite a bit throughout my life, and I'm not talking just luxury, because before luxury I sold a lot of things because I moved all the way across country. I've had to sell a lot of my personal belongings, including furniture and clothing and just a bunch of different other things other than luxury. It just really made me realize that selling is hard and a lot of work, and that's why you pay a lot of money to consignment stores to sell stuff for you, because they did all that hard work for you. And so even though I do prefer to sell most of my luxury items myself because I'm okay with doing all that work, having said that, it's still really not that easy. So hopefully that was helpful. And also there is a bit of a learning curve, and like I always say, I do encourage you guys to read everything, do a lot of research. You are your best resource, and you cannot be lazy at those things. You always have to find out all the terms and the pros and the cons, and whether you're okay with the risks and just the ways it works with the process. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you so much for joining my Q&A, and if you're brand new to my channel, thanks so much for joining us, and I hope that you'll consider subscribing by clicking on that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date. If you're already an existing subscriber, I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye!